All started on the 26th of May 1828, when a 16-year-old boy appeared on the streets in Nuremberg, Bavaria, Germany, which attracted international attention. A shoemaker named Weichmann, he found the boy and he took him to the house of the Captain von Wesenig, where he would repeat the words only, "I want to be a cavalryman, as my father was, and horse, horse." Weichmann asked him where he came from, and the boy mentioned, "I'm coming from Regensburg, which is around 1 hour 15 minutes far away from Nuremberg." The boy carried a letter with him in which it was stated that he wanted to become a cavalryman, like his father was, and asked the captain to either take him or hang him. There was another short letter enclosed, purporting to be from his mother to his prior caretaker. It stated that his name was Kasper, that he was born on the 30th of April 1812, and his father, a cavalryman of the 6th Regiment, now was dead. It seemed the boy was familiar with money. He could say some prayers and read a little, but he answered few questions, but in general his vocabulary appeared to be rather limited. The boy mentioned, as long as he could remember, he always had been held like a prisoner, all alone in a dark room with only bread and water. Welcome to Mysterious Storyteller. My name is Bernie. I'm happy you are here. But before we jump into the whole story, please do me a favor and click on this like button and the bell in order to receive notifications about my new mysterious stories. By the way, you really would help me a lot if you would subscribe to my small, tiny YouTube channel. Yeah, and I'm uploading new content at least once a week for now. So please stay tuned. Okay, let's jump into the entire story. After a short stay at the apartment of this man with the name von Wesenig, the boy was transported to the police station, where he wrote down the name Kaspar Hauser. Further demands elicited only tears or obstinate proclamations of "I don't know." The boy spent the following 2 months in Lugisland Tower Prison at the Nuremberg castle in care of a jailer named Andreas Hiltil. At first he only drank water and ate bread. His mental state aroused the interest of jurists, theologians, and educators who conducted numerous studies on him and gave him lessons in speaking. At first it was assumed that Hauser was a half-wild child from the forest. During the course of conversations with the mayor Binder, Hauser told him different versions of his past life, which he wrote down later on in more details. According to the story, Hauser had, as long as he could remember, spent his life in a solitary confinement in a darkened cell. He gave the cell's dimensions as approximately 2 meter long, 1 meter wide, and 1.5 meter height, with only a straw bed where he used to sleep on, and with 2 toys, which was 2 horses and a dog, carved out of wood. Hauser claimed to be found rye bread beside his bed each morning, and at times the water would taste a little bit bitter, which caused him to sleep more deeply than usual. The depth of state of sleep was explained by the assumption that he was given opium. He relieved himself in a vessel that stood in a depression in the ground and was also emptied each night. On such occasions, upon awakening, he noticed that his straw has been changed in his bed, and his hair and nails have been cut. Hauser claimed that the first human being he met was a man who visited him not long time before he got released. The man took great care not to reveal his face to him. This man taught him how to write his own name by leading his hand. After he learned how to stand and walk, the boy eventually was brought to Nuremberg, and this stranger taught him how to speak the sentence, "I want to be a cavalryman like my father was." Yeah, but Hauser claimed he did not even understand what does this mean. On July 18, 1828, the boy was taken to George Friedrich Daumer, a grammar school professor and later philosopher of religion, who was on leave because he was ill and who taught him numerous subjects. So this showed him that actually Hauser was pretty talented. He was very good in craftsmanship, and he had a kind of artistic talent. Daumer was actually a well-read scholar with an unusually strong tendency of speculations even at this time. So he made a few experiments with Hauser to find out more about him. And for example, one thing what they have done, Daumer was standing maybe 2 meters far away from Hauser, and he was moving his arms. And Hauser claimed with closed eyes that he can feel the blow of the wind from the movements from Daumer's arms, which led him to believe that Hauser actually has some kind of special talents. On noon on October 17, 1829, Hauser was found in the basement of Daumer's apartment with a heavily bleeding cut on his forehead, like this, straight. And Hauser claimed he has been attacked by a masked man with a knife, and he has been threatened. And he told him, "You have to die before you come out of the city of Nuremberg." Hauser stated that he recognized the voice of this man, and he believed that this was the man who brought him to Nuremberg. A blood stain showed that Kasper actually fled into the first floor where his room was located, but then no further blood stains have been seen in the direction of the upper rooms where he knew other people were. Despite the police investigation and the suspension of a large reward, the incident could not be cleared. For security reasons, the boy then was transferred to a family with the name Bieberbach, a magistrate, and under surveillance of 2 police officers. The alleged assassination revived public interest in Kaspar Hauser and fueled rumors about his possible origins and aristocracy. There also was a story about a message in a bottle from 1816. And of course, they checked this letter with the handwritings, everything, and names, and what actually was written on it. The message in the bottle reads follows. I will just read it from a paper here. "Whoever finds this letter, I am being held prisoner in a dungeon near Laufenburg am Rhein, at the Rhine River. My dungeon is underground, and the one who has now taken possession of my paper does not know the place. I cannot write more, and the one who has now taken possession of my paper is carefully and cruelly guarded." The police could not find a link between the letter or the story with the Prince of Baden, who was born actually in 1812, and did not really match up, because the father of Prince of Baden still was alive in 1812. On April 3, 1830, a pistol shot was fired in Hauser's room, still at the house of the Bieberbach family. And the 2 guards who opened the door from Hauser found him unconscious on the ground and bleeding at his head. And later on, Hauser claimed he climbed up on a chair in order to grip a book from the upper shelf. And when he fell over, he was touching a pistol which was hanging from the ceiling. How? And this released the shot. The wound on the right-hand side of his head turned out to be harmless. But anyway, it's doubtful whether it was caused by a shot. The incident prompted the local authorities to look into Kaspar Hauser again. Since his initially good relationship with the Bieberbach family became troubled, he was housed with his guardian, Gottlieb von Tucher, for 1.5 years. There he was kept a little bit more strictly, in particular the rush of the curious people who wanted to visit him. What is also very interesting, that the head of the Nuremberg City Archive in 2013 announced that Kaspar Hauser actually was living with the mothers from his guardian and also the mother-in-law. Despite the guardian's foreclosure, Philip Henry Earl Stanhope was a permanent English traveler and, attracted by the extraordinary, succeeded in making Hauser's acquaintance. The lord, who developed a strong affection for Kasper, tried to get Hauser's guardians. In December 1831, he received the guardianship for Hauser and brought him to Ansbach in the household of Johann Georg Meyer. Ansbach is around 1 hour far away from Nuremberg. In doing so, he followed a suggestion by the court president Anselm von Feuerbach, who took over the care of Kasper's moral and physical well-being during Stanhope's absence. The Gendarmerie Lieutenant Joseph Hickel was appointed special curator. He had Feuerbach's trust and had access to the investigation files. Stanhope spent large amounts of money to clarify the origin of Hauser. He financed 2 trips to Hungary because of the sounds of the language spoken there seemed to awaken memories for Hauser. The Lord later explained the fruitlessness of these trips had raised his first doubts about his authenticity of Hauser's story. In January 1832, Stanhope left Ansbach and never returned, although he continued to support Kasper, but he never came back. The special curator Hickel certified the Lord in an official report, "He loves the truth and he hates the liar forever." In Ansbach, Kaspar Hauser frequented the best social circle. He had an engaging personality and he was popular as a passionate dancer, but he never had a relationship with any women. Hauser's relationship to his schoolmaster Meyer, an allegedly strict, pedantic character to whom he later expressed his very big thanks on his deathbed, even though he disliked Hauser's excuses and apparent lies, was strained. In Meyer's opinion, Hauser was unsuitable for any jobs and would have required higher intellectual trainings. Von Feuerbach placed him at his court as a scribe and copyist in late 1832. Hauser was cared for pastorally by Pastor Fuhrmann, who also confirmed him on May 1833 in the Gumbertus Church in Ansbach. A few days later, on May 29, 1833, Anselm von Feuerbach died. This was a very grievous loss for Kasper. Kasper still was hoping that Stanhope would take him to England. Hauser was pretty much dissatisfied with his current situation. Other authors pointed out that Feuerbach, by the end of his life, lost faith in Hauser. He had written a note to be found in his legacy, which read, "Kaspar Hauser is a smart, charming courtier, a rogue, and good for nothing that ought to be killed." However, there is no indication that Feuerbach, already seriously ill, let Hauser feel this change of opinion. On the 9th of December 1833, Hauser had a serious argument with Meyer. Lord Stanhope was expected to visit Ansbach at Christmas, and Meyer stated he would not know how he should face him. 5 days later, on the 14th of 1833, Hauser came back with a deep wound in his breast. By his account, an unknown person has invited him, on behalf of the court gardener, to visit the artesian well in Ansbach Court Garden. However, he did not find anyone there. Then he went to the direction of the Us monument, where a bearded man approached him and wanted to hand him over a bag. It was a kind of pinky lady bag. He had no idea why this bearded man wanted to hand him over this pinky lady bag. But anyway, I think he was curious. He went over to this guy, and in the moment when this bearded man wanted to hand over this lady bag, and Hauser was almost touching it, in this moment, this bearded man stabbed the knife into Hauser's breast. A police officer with the name Herrlein visited the crime scene at the court garden and found this small pink lady bag. And he found also a letter inside. And there was written, "Hauser will be able to tell you precisely how I look and where I come from. To save Hauser the effort, I will tell you myself from where I come. I come from the Bavarian border. I even tell you the name, which is M.L.Ö. In both cases, the first attack on the 17th of October 1829 and the 14th of December 1833, Kasper claimed to have been a victim of assassin. His followers suspected a kind of politically motivated crime. However, according to forensic investigations, it was a matter of self-harm, which he had taught himself because of disappointment at the waning public interest in his person. Hauser eventually died on the wound on 17th of December 1833, 10 p.m. at the age of 21 years. After Hauser's death, Lord Stanhope finally distanced himself from Kaspar Hauser. In his materials on the history of Kaspar Hauser, Heidelberg 1835, he compiled all the incriminating material against Hauser known to him because he considered it his duty to publicly admit that I was deceived. The doctors involved in the forensic examination did not agree whether the wound was caused by self-harm or by someone else. King Ludwig I offered the then exceptionally high sum of 10,000 guilders as a reward for the arrest of the possible perpetrator, but without any result. Inconsistencies in Hauser's account led the Ansbach Court of Inquiry to suspect that he had stabbed himself and then invented a tale about being attacked. The note in the purse that was found in the court garden contained a spelling error and grammatical error, both of which were typical for Hauser, who on his deathbed muttered incoherently about writing with pencil. Also, Hauser was eager that the purse be found. He did not ask for its contents. The note itself was folded into a specific triangular form, in the way in which Hauser would fold his letters, according to Mrs. Meyer. Forensic examiners agreed that the wound might indeed be self-inflicted. Many authors believe that he had wounded himself in a bid to revive public interest in his story and to persuade Stanhope to fulfill his promise to take him to England, but that he had injured himself more deeply than planned. That in fact means that he made up all the stories from beginning on by himself when he appeared in the streets in Nuremberg. Handwriting analyses proved that Kasper wrote all these letters by himself. So everything was a plan from beginning on. So actually he was a good actor. But wait, the story is not yet over. Can anybody out there hear me? Hauser's death started a veritable avalanche. According to contemporary rumors, probably currently as early as 1829, Kaspar Hauser was, in fact, the hereditary Prince of Baden, who was born 29th of September 1812. In that case, Hauser's parents would have been Charles, Grand Duke of Baden, and Stephanie de Beauharnais, cousin by marriage and adopted daughter of Napoleon. As Charles had no surviving male progeny, his successor was his uncle, Louis, who was later succeeded by his half-brother, Leopold. Leopold's mother, the Countess of Hochberg, was the alleged culprit for the plot. The Countess was supposed to have disguised herself as a ghost, the White Lady, when kidnapping the prince. Her motive, evidently, would have been to secure the succession for her sons. Following Hauser's death, it was further claimed that he was murdered, again to hide his supposed true identity. After completing the investigations on September 11, 1834, the Ansbach District and City Court took the view that one could not avoid justified doubts as to whether a murder was committed against Hauser by someone else or whether a crime was actually committed against him. In another letter, Police Councillor Merker opted for self-injury without intention to kill. Kaspar himself said to Pastor Fuhrmann on his deathbed, "Why should I have anger or hate or resentment towards people? Nobody did anything to me." You see? So this is the confession now that everything was made up. Because nobody hurt him. He has done it by himself. After 150-year Kaspar Hauser research, this story still is subject for investigations. Many people with their explanations got involved. It honestly would take ages now to tell you about all the articles from these people, such as institutions, authorities, police, courts, churches, doctors, professors of psychiatrics, and more. Countless stories came up since his death and his identity. Many doctors and other peoples investigated Kasper's stories, such as the story that he was kept in a dungeon, or the story about the opium, his intelligence, or his mental conditions. Even in the years 1996 and 2002, genetic analyses were used to determine whether Hauser's genetic material was suspected to match or deviate from the surviving female descendants of Grand Duchess Stephanie. However, regarding the imprisonment in the dungeons, Hauser's sensory organs were described as overly sensitive and his muscles underdeveloped. The mirror writing slip contrast enhanced photograph. The original has disappeared since 1945. Traces of the folds typical of Hauser's can be seen. Facsimile of the mirrored label. The note found in the Ansbacher Hofgarten with the inscription in mirror writing is regarded as an important indication. According to the fraud theory, Kasper wrote it himself because, unlike the alleged assassination attempt of 1829, this time the imagined attacker should leave a trail. In support of this thesis, reference is made to linguistic similarities with text originating from Hauser. The words "I want to tell you myself" are reminiscent of formulations at the beginning of his two autobiographical essays. The story of Kaspar Hauser, "I want to write it myself," and "I want to write it myself." According to the teacher Meyer, Hauser also often made a spelling mistake, wherefrom, for example, in his Latin-German vocabulary book, in which he translated "under" with "where from." The wrong case, "den" instead of "dem," also occurs frequently in his notebooks. In addition, the note was folded in a particular triangle shape, just as Kasper used to fold his letters. Mrs. Meyer was particularly shocked by this, who, unlike her husband, had a very cordial relationship with Kasper. Even during Kaspar Hauser's lifetime, there were voices that questioned his credibility, even assuming that he had already staged the suspension. However, it's also often assumed that Hauser actually came to Nuremberg as an abandoned child, gradually becoming involved in contradictions under the various influences and cultivating a self-portrayal. There was a fatal interplay between a naive public and a person who was mentally damaged due to family neglect or genetic condition, and who was now elevated to a mythical figure. The Dungeon fairy tale was probably only asked into Kasper. He then faked the attacks in order to attract new attention and to rekindle the temporarily subdued rumors about his origin, and at the same time to distract the emerging doubts about his credibility. Therefore, Hauser inflicted more serious injuries on the second fake attack than on the first, but probably unintentionally caused his death. This then solidified the prince legend. So that's the story for today. I hope you liked it. And if you have any other theories or thoughts, please let me know what you think about the story and leave some comments down below. And one more time, please don't forget to subscribe to my small tiny YouTube channel so you would get some notifications about new mystery stories when I'm uploading them to YouTube. Please don't forgive me about my presentation. I'm not very fluent with English because I am German. And yeah, I'm not very good in talking. Maybe you notice sometimes I'm reading, but I hope I did not bother you too much with that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and listening to my strange academic English dialect. But I hope all is fine, and thank you again, and please stay safe. Thank you, your Bernie.